For some, it was only a matter of time, but for others, it was a bit of a surprise to see this report come out that RJ Barrett's representation is fully aware that he is going to be discussed in trades moving forward. So, what does this mean for RJ Barrett's future and the future of the Raptors? Does this make them a buying team going into the season? Let's get into it. This is Amateur Sports, the YouTube channel that gives you Toronto Raptors content in videos and in live streams. And the news that's come out in the recent days are about RJ Barrett. Now, I've talked a lot about RJ Barrett over the course of the offseason and the possibility, perhaps the likelihood of him getting traded. And oftentimes there's been some pushback from a lot of the fan base and a lot of the community. A lot of that pushback is just confusion as to why the Raptors want to trade RJ Barrett. He was their most potent offensive weapon last season. He's still pretty young. He's only gotten better on a year-to-year basis. There are claims that he is good value for money based on his contract, but I've always felt like the Raptors are going to move in a direction away from RJ Barrett. Not as much about the talent. We'll talk a little bit about the issues regarding some of the talent over the course of the videos, but it's not as much about the talent. It's just more so about the fit. And it's always been apparent to me that the Raptors would be looking to trade RJ Barrett. They are going to be shopping RJ Barrett. So the pushback is understandable on the front of the talent, of the contract, of the age and stuff. But I've never really understand the pushback in the sense of like what gives you the indication that the Raptors want to trade RJ Barrett. Well, I mean, there's been a number of pretty good, incredible reports that have come out suggesting that they're interested in moving RJ Barrett. He's been shopped in a lot of these big-time star hunting, big fish hunting moves over the course of the offseason. Even offered to the New Orleans Pelicans at the trade deadline in the deal that brought Brandon Ingram to the Raptors. And actually, if the Pelicans were interested in RJ Barrett, he would have been traded to the Pelicans, but instead they opted to go for the expiring salaries of Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown to get the deal done. So a bit of information on RJ Barrett, but I don't think anybody can argue against the Raptors' desires here and what those desires are after the reports have come out lately from Jake Fisher. Now, Jake Fisher, I've come around on a lot as a reporter. He's been very in tune with the Raptors in terms of his reporting over the last few years. So there's no reason for me to think that this is anything other than credible reporting here, that RJ Barrett's representation, again, is fully aware that he will be discussed in trades moving forward. So RJ Barrett is going to have to operate this season with the Raptors under the understanding that the Raptors want to trade him. And at any given point during the season, if a good trade is brought up, they are going to move RJ Barrett on. So we're going to start off this conversation by talking about why the Raptors would want to move away from RJ Barrett. And then we're going to follow that up by talking about what sort of trade this is going to look like. Is it just a trade of getting off of RJ Barrett, or is it a trade where the Raptors want to turn themselves into buyers this season, especially as they move towards the trade deadline? But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here. Why would the Raptors want to move off of RJ Barrett? Like I said, he was their most potent offensive weapon last season in terms of scoring, 21 points per game. He has always seemed to get better and better in his short time with the Toronto Raptors so far, and he's still young. He's entering his age 25 season, and in this age 25 season, he's making $27.7 million. Next season, the final year of his contract, he's making $29.6 million. In this era of NBA contracts, like you have a player averaging 21 points per game who's making less than $30 million per season, that would typically be conducive of a player that you want on your team. But unfortunately, that's just not the current situation for the Raptors. And like I said, like most of it is fit, but part of it is talent as well. In the fit discussions here, RJ Barrett, I mean, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Is RJ Barrett a player who is skilled enough to be your lead player, your number one player on a good team? I think if we're really honest with ourselves, like, listen, I don't think so. And I think you need to be honest with yourself if you disagree and agree with me here. Because you watch RJ Barrett, like what is his method for scoring? It is attacking the rim. It is being aggressive and getting into the paint. It's getting layups on the inside, finishing on the inside. It's not as much from a three-point shooting standpoint, which is what the NBA has trended more and more towards over time. Like, RJ Barrett needs the ball to be as effective as he is. The issue with that and in the scoring is that it's just not quite efficient enough to justify him having the ball all the time. So with his skill set, you'd much rather him be a little bit lower in the pecking order. And for the Raptors, you've got the likes of Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, who are going to command the most touches and most of the touches on the team. And your best three-point shooter is likely going to be Emmanuel Quickley in terms of volume. Is he the highest three-point percentage player on the team? Maybe not. But in terms of the volume, he's going to be your most important three-point scorer on the team going into the season. So a lot of these players need touches. RJ Barrett's not going to be the focal point of the offense. And when you're not a focal point of the offense, the two biggest skills that you need to complement the players that get a lot of touches are three-point shooting and defense. Unfortunately, neither of those two things have ever been RJ Barrett's strong suit. Like, you can look at three-point percentages, which do not tell you the full story. Like, yes, RJ Barrett shoots 35%, but are teams leaving him open? Are they happy to let RJ Barrett shoot like a pretty uncontested three-pointer? Yes, they are. Therefore, that's not contributing to the spacing that is needed for Brandon Ingram, who is not a very high-volume three-point shooter, for Scotty Barnes, who's not a very good three-point shooter, at least showcased that last season. Hopefully, he does get better. Like, for Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes to thrive, they need additional spacing, and just unfortunately, the reality is RJ Barrett doesn't provide that, and his talent alone doesn't justify foregoing the things that are lacking within his game, and it does not justify getting him more touches, getting him more of the ball. Therefore, the Raptors are starting to move in this direction. I think it's completely fair to say that about RJ Barrett. Yes, he has been improving, but do we really see this extraordinary three-point jump happening? Do we really see this extraordinary jump from defensive output happening? I don't. And look, if we do, that's fantastic. Like, all of a sudden, he's a lot more important to the team, and the focus for the Raptors likely shifts away from trading him. So if it is RJ Barrett's desire to continue on this team, to be a very important part of this team going forward, the two biggest things he's going to have worked on in the offseason are three-point shooting. He's going to have to become a much better knockdown three-point shooter, one that commands attention from the defense, one they have to guard in the perimeter, one they have to close out aggressively. That's going to make everybody else's game around RJ Barrett easier, and it's honestly going to make RJ Barrett's game himself easier. But he also needs to be able to contribute a lot more on the defensive side of the ball. Now, he's got all the physical tools to do it. He's got the size to do it. He just has to be able to produce it. I'm not holding out a ton of hope those two things reach an adequate level this season. But again, if it does, great. Like, if this big development jump happens in the offseason that some people are hoping for, that's great. He'll be an important part of the team. He's going to very much be a significant part of helping the team win games. And the Raptors, again, will likely shift away from trading it. But again, because I'm not holding out a ton of hope those jumps are going to happen in those two most important categories, the likely endeavor is that the Raptors are going to still continue to want to pursue a trade for the player. So what does this trade actually look like? Because, like I said, if RJ Barrett, people talk about the contract here as a positive. It doesn't seem like that much money. I agree. It doesn't seem like a very big contract. The issue is not like the figure here and what we think of it. The issue is how it's perceived around the NBA. Because I already provided an example here. RJ Barrett was offered to the New Orleans Pelicans at the trade deadline. And if the Pelicans thought this was a good contract, RJ Barrett would have been on the New Orleans Pelicans. Like, if this was perceived to have been a good contract, he'd be gone already. Whether it would be to the Pelicans at the trade deadline in the Brandon Ingram trade, when instead they decided to go with the expiring contract of Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, he would have been gone then. But if this was perceived to have been a valuable contract and a good contract, he would have been moved already in the summer because they have already been shopping him over the course of the offseason. That's not me being a hater. That's not me being mean. That's just facts. If this contract was perceived to be a high-value contract in the NBA today, RJ Barrett would have already been traded. And if it was that valuable, maybe the Raptors wouldn't even want to trade him. But we know that's not the case on either of those fronts. So the issue is here for me is that along with this reporting here from Jake Fisher, there's a suggestion that the Raptors want to be a buyer this season. They want to be a buying team this season. Which, I understand. Look, they want to make the playoffs. They're done tanking. They feel as though there's an Eastern Conference here available to exploit. It's not the strongest Eastern Conference. Even so, the Raptors' projected win-loss is unfortunately projected to be right now, according to odds makers, 10th in the Eastern Conference. They're ranked as basically the 10th best team in the Eastern Conference. Now, you can make a case that they're undervalued there. They should probably win a few more games than that. They could be, 9th, 8th best team. I'm not really seeing top 6 vibes out of this team. I'm thinking that like a very good season for the Raptors would be like a 7 seed, honestly. And then you have 2 shots at the play-in tournament. A very, very good season. It would be a surprise to me. Would be a top 6 seed. I don't think it's impossible, but again, it would be quite a surprise. So the Raptors want to be a buying team. And look, a buying trade certainly helps their chances in getting to a top 6 spot in the Eastern Conference. That should be their goal going into the season. A lofty goal, yes, but that should be their goal going into the season. And again, being buyers would help that. I just don't really see what sort of trade can materialize that would make the Raptors a buying team. Like often when you're a buying team, the types of contracts you're giving away are expiring ones. Like you're giving away picks and expiring contracts to take on a good player from another team. So when you're buying from a not so good team that values expiring contracts. They give themselves cap space in the offseason, that along with draft picks. The Raptors this season, as much as the value associated with a lot of the contracts they have are tradable, like, $27.7 million for RJ Barrett. That's somewhat tradable. The issue is they don't have a lot of expiring salary they can give away to make these sorts of trades happen. So if RJ Barrett is the tool, is the piece to make that buying trade happen, you have to find a team that is comfortable with taking on not only the rest of this year of RJ Barrett's contract, but also next year of RJ Barrett. As we saw last season with the Pelicans, look, it's different. There'd be 1 year left rather than 2 years left. But we saw last season at the trade deadline with the Pelicans, they would have rather gone in a different direction. They don't value RJ Barrett as much as a player rather than just a financial amount to balance out salaries to make a trade happen. So that's going to be the fight the Raptors have over the course of this season, where they are shopping RJ Barrett, where they are looking to trade RJ Barrett. The battle is going to be like, yes, the Raptors do want to move RJ Barrett, but RJ Barrett is still a good player. Like, I know I've talked about the deficiencies within his game, but he is still a good player who can give you 20-plus points per game. And there is value in that. And the Raptors will have to decide, is there more value in keeping him than making a trade? Because if it's a trade that makes them buyers and makes them better, sure, go for it. But the Raptors aren't just going to be trading RJ Barrett for the sake of trading RJ Barrett just to get rid of him here. RJ Barrett still provides value on the court for a team that wants to win games. So again, the trade-off is going to have to be, will the Raptors figure out a way to move on from RJ Barrett and actually make the team better? Because in that case, that's a trade obviously you have to make. If the trade makes your team better, then you make the trade. If it makes you better as an organization, you make that trade. I think that should always be the case. But if the trade isn't going to do that, I'm still pretty comfortable in just keeping RJ Barrett and seeing how things play out. And then maybe some more drastic things have to happen at the end of the season to kind of reshuffle if the season doesn't go the way the Raptors want. So overall, RJ Barrett, good player, yes, not good enough to command the touches that he needs to be as effective as possible. Therefore, he becomes a complementary player, but his skill set isn't conducive of that of a complementary player. So again, you look to trade him, see what's out there. If it's not a good trade, keep him. If it is a good trade, I'm more than comfortable moving on from him. That's how I feel about the whole situation. This is a polarizing topic, but we now have the confirmation the Raptors are still going to remain in aggressive pursuit of a trade here. What do you think of this whole situation?